What's going on, everybody? John Eric Pauli here with my MMA news, and today's guest will be fighting at Bellator 301 on November 17th. Always great catching up with Cody Law. Cody, how you doing, man? Nice to see you.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, always a pleasure, and you're always welcome here. You know that. Let's start right here. Obviously, getting back inside of the cage for the second time this year. Just how much are you looking forward to going out there and getting the second win here of 2023?
I'm looking forward to it. Two fights is not enough for me, but I'm happy to be getting this one. And hopefully, I'll have a I'll have a performance I can be happy with. I feel like I haven't got to really be happy with myself since about March of 2022. So I'm looking to get that feeling back. It's really what I love about, part of what I love about fighting is being happy with yourself afterwards, the enjoyment of winning the right way. So looking to get back on track with that.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that actually. So your last fight, we'll back up. We'll start with that one right there. Obviously, you're coming in on a two-fight losing streak there. Just, how good did it feel to be able to snap that, put on the performance that you put on? Obviously, seemed like things really got back on track in that fight.
Honestly, it didn't feel really that good. I still kind of feel like I'm on that losing streak in a way because it wasn't the performance I wanted. I feel like started strong and then got slowed down in the second and third and just I don't even like to really watch it back. I don't feel like it wasn't as good as I can do, and so that's kind of what I mean. I haven't really been happy since that last win before that in March.
And I believe you may have talked about this once before in an interview, but I'll go ahead and ask again 'cause I feel like it's a relevant question here. Obviously, we both follow football. We know that I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, being a Packers fan. And he said something last year when he was with the Packers that I thought really stood out, and they were on a losing streak. And he said, all it takes is one. Like, we get one win, one good performance. This is going to change everything right around. And that's what ended up happening. They had the one win. They put a few of them together, end up just missing the playoffs by a
Yeah.
game at the end of the year. Do you kind of feel, a little bit like that where all it takes is one, just that one good performance? And obviously, you had to win the last fight. You weren't happy with the performance, but
Mhm.
one performance that you're happy with can change this whole entire thing right around.
100%. I feel like it's not it's not just one win that I want or that I need. It's one performance. If when I have that breakthrough performance where I finally go out there and perform the way I perform in sparring and do everything that I can do, now that it'll be like that achievement is unlocked. Now every fight after that, I've felt myself do that in there before. I can do it from here on out. That's what I'm looking for. Just that one performance.
And for everybody watching at home too, like it's a lot easier, said than done. Like you just said before, like I'm doing these great things in sparring. It's got to translate over the cage. And people, I don't think understand. Like it's not as easy what people think it is when you get inside the cage. Or the lights are on you. Your opponent doesn't necessarily. You might be planning like I don't know. They're going to come forward at me. They don't come forward. You got to make game plans on the fly. It's a lot
Yeah.
harder. Explain that a little bit for the people out there that don't really understand that whole side of the sport.
Yeah, it's very different, right? In sparring, sparring's relaxed. There's not a bunch of people. There's not, even down to the canvas. The canvas feels different. It smells different. There's so many different things that are happening and you get excited. Like I get, I feel that excitement before the fight of I'm just gonna knock this guy out. And then you're not tactical or as intentional with what you're doing. At least for me, I've gone out and kind of I've sprinted a little too much. I've gone a little bit too aggressive with things. Where in sparring, I'm a little bit more reserved with things. So there's a lot of intangibles that you can't really explain, but it's just like wrestling. I'm figuring that out, and I had to learn on the fly. Right, my first fight was in Bellator, and now we're double digits, which I'm happy about, and I think it's going to show.
And I was going to ask you too when we get into the training camp question. I guess we'll get into that stuff now here. I remember when you first started out, like you said, you were raw. You were 0-0 coming in first pro fight in Bellator. So a lot of your first few fights wasn't even game planning for an opponent. It was just you getting better as a fighter. Are you into the game planning stuff now, or are you still kind of doing more or less the you're still young in your career. You're still growing. You're still learning. A lot of people have amateur fights, have more amateur fights before they even turn pro. You're doing all this, like you said, on the fly.
Yeah, I mean 50-50, right? Like I have an idea of what I want to do in there. But what I want to do is kind of more about me than about him, right? I'd probably want to do this against most guys, what I'm planning for the fight. So, like you said, I'm still in a developmental period of my career. Like I'm still developing new skills. I'm still learning more and more about fighting. I'm not at that phase where I have 25 fights and 10 years worth of professional experience and I'm just going in and sparring and staying sharp. I'm still learning. I'm still developing.
And do you think at all maybe that Bellator maybe I want to say pushed you maybe in a way? Because when you first came on the scene, right, you were the top prospect that got signed. They were really hyping you up there. You got ranked really, really fast there. And I mean, obviously, it's shown your two losses that you had. You were right there. I mean, it easily could have went in your favor there. You could be ranked in the top five. In all honesty, right now, if those fights just have a round goes differently, a judge sees it differently. But do you feel there was maybe a little bit of a push, maybe a little too soon since you're still developing, or not so much?
I don't know. I mean, I think in a way that it is, right? Because if you look at most guys, like if you go through their tapology, even you'll see guys who, for their first 10 fights, they're fighting guys that are like 1-1, 0-2, and I'm fighting at 6-0. I remember hearing people saying like, "Hey, why is he not? He needs to fight like a top 10 guy. He needs to fight a top five guy." And looking back, it's like, well, it's very early. I haven't been fighting I'm fighting guys who've been fighting for 10 years. I've been fighting for 2 years. And yeah, those two losses I felt like were experience things. No, I feel like I won, especially the last one, but they were experience problems, and that's why, to jump the gun and start fighting top 10 guys at 6-0 is kind of crazy. And Bellator didn't do that to me, but at some point, I just got to get in there and start fighting guys.
Hey, and that's why they always say with MMA, right? It's not that you win and you lose, it's that you win and you learn because these are the experiences that need to happen to get better in the career. And we know that you're on the
Yeah.
right track to do all of that there. So let's now, though, get into kind of the preparation here a little bit for Bellator 301. We'll start with camp. Obviously, it sounds like just by the way you were talking about sparring and everything before, camp has been absolutely fantastic.
It's been a great camp, man. I mean, I've kind of been in camp for like 4 months. I took a little bit of rest after the last fight, and then I was in Pennsylvania for a while, so I did a ton of work here, and then was in Florida for the last month or so. And the sparring was perfect. I think the pacing was a little bit better for this camp, where I'm much more fresh, and I'm kind of like eager to get in there. I don't feel beat up, and I don't feel like I'm cutting weight, but much more intentional this time around, and I think it's going to show.
And you mentioned being back in Pennsylvania, everything. You're actually in Pennsylvania right now. Just explain that a little bit too, because obviously two of your cornermen are going to be from Pennsylvania, so you kind of change things up just a little bit, right? How you normally do things.
Yeah, yeah, I came back for the last week because Isaac Greeley and Philip Amaris are going to be in my corner. They're both here in Pennsylvania, so I wanted to just get a couple workouts with them. And they make me feel comfortable, and I feel nice and sharp when I work with them. And I also get to be at home with my family and everything. So I just thought it was a good way to freshen up before we go to fight.
All right, excuse me. All right, let's talk about your opponent now here just a little bit. What have you seen out of him, and what are you kind of preparing for on fight night?
He seems like he's kind of swings wild a bit. He's gonna maybe look to grapple from. There's not much out there, but it looks like he's gonna want to grapple, and um, I like it. He's 6-0, and he's which looks good on my record, and he's got half the experience that I have, which is the first time I've ever fought a guy that I have more experience than. And in this case, I double the experience, which is big advantage, I feel.
So now you normally, right? You like to write down a prediction before the fight. You kind of have things visioned out in your head. Did you do that yet, or is that going to be more like a fight week thing?
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm gonna do it because that hasn't really been my focus this time around hasn't been about winning so much as it's been about performing. I think like you put too much emphasis on winning and losing and you stray a little bit. Where this time I just want to focus on doing my best, giving my best performance, and the winning will easily take care of itself. Like easily I'll win if I perform. So I want to focus on performing. If I write anything down, it's gonna be that I have a breakthrough performance.
And I'm sure you're going to have one, man. I know you've been working really hard down there. The plan is to obviously go out here, look good in the cage. And I know this for certain. You're going to look good on the way to the cage. 'Cause I've been seeing the Mark Russell photos there that have been posted of
Yeah.
you recently. I really like those suits, man. Have you been working with him for a while?
I have been with him for, yeah, since I think since March of 2022. And he's a great guy too. Like he's actually become one of my good friends. And his suits are always perfect.
I can tell you what, man, I really like the fit on his suits there. Are they all like he
Yeah.
personally tailors everything for you there? I mean, he does a fantastic job. Give him a little shout out too, just for the business and everything.
Yeah, man. When you get a suit from Mark, it's you're tailor made, measured, and everything. They come in, and each time you get a new suit, they're working off the previous measurement. So they're kind of constantly tweaking and tailoring, and it's incredible. Like sometimes if a suit comes and it fits me a little different than I want it to fit me this time, I just they get it fixed like within a day. Because every fabric fits differently, right? Or maybe I'm starting to change. My body's getting bigger, smaller. The changes are always made, and it always fits me perfect.
What's the color of the suit for this time? Can you tell us, or is that going to be a surprise?
It's the color that I was posting pictures in, that green, and which is the same color of almost the identical color of the shorts I'm gonna wear for the fight, which is kind of ironic, just by chance.
All right, I like the green stuff. They're very nice,
Yeah,
man. Just
yeah,
one last thing now before we head out for the day. Fights are back in Chicago. I believe your last fights were Chicago as well. Just the excitement level for going back to that big city there.
yeah. I'm excited. I don't do too much, so really, I don't really care where the fight is as long as it's in the States. I don't have to travel too much. But and like I told you before we started, um, I'm flying out early the next day, so I don't get to do too much out there. Winning, fighting is all that I'm really there for.
Well, man, enjoy the trip. Enjoy the fight. Can't wait to see the breakout performance that's coming your way. I'm sure we'll be speaking again in a few weeks here about the performance. So, just last thing before we head out for the day, as always, social media so people know where to follow you at, management, sponsorships, all that good stuff. Take it away.
Yeah, just Cody Law MMA on everything, and you can find me on there and see all my sponsors and follow along.